there are multiple ways of doing that. First is, I'd start with, and particularly because you asked the question, just thinking there are so many people who are Irish and of Irish descent. In fact, I have a class at the U.S. Naval Academy, and I just brought them to meet with Ambassador Michael Collins, the Irish ambassador in Washington. And of course, the reason for that, for those of you who follow this type of thing, the Navy is going to be challenging Notre Dame, and the game will be in Dublin in September. But the first question the ambassador asked, he had everybody go around. He goes, now tell me your name and where you're from. And then he insisted, now where's your family from? So let me just start with that. I think many Americans, I'm included in this group, I'm of Ukrainian descent. Americans are very proud of their heritage and are very much tied. So I don't think, first, don't be swayed by maybe, whether be it ads or newspaper articles, just as first the personal touch. I think that each and every one of you, as whether it's here in Atlanta or throughout Georgia or in the neighborhood, the personal contact with communities, it makes a difference. That goes back to my first point about one of the reasons why Europe matters. We have strong bonds, cultural bonds, strong values. And in terms of my own wonderful tenure in dealing with Northern Ireland and the Irish American community, let me tell you, I really witnessed that in terms of the kind of solidarity and the care of what's happening back in Northern Ireland and in Ireland. So, starting with ethnic communities, I use that loosely, but communities here and heritage. I think that's a way of tapping into a real sentiment here. The second area that at least that I would pick out is also what I mentioned in terms of these kinds of global issues. Here you have the Centers for Disease Control. And just thinking about, how important health issues are to all of us. So that goes to the same concept. I'm always amazed of where an issue can provide these kinds of common bonds, ties, where people are not looking at, issues through a certain prism and a singular prism, but my gosh, this matters to all of us. And that was the comment made to us by this European diplomat, that, I think our youth have to stop focusing on all of these negative things, but looking at what they've been doing and how they could contribute to actually better our societies, and focus on that. There's a third element that I also think is very important here, and that really all of you also represent, and that's the governmental and private sector. Public-private partnerships are so much the core of what we do. In my work, I can't name one single issue where public-private partnerships didn't matter. How does this matter? It matters because it's the communities. We're talking about communities, people who actually are going to interact with others overseas. So I think you get beyond some of these kinds of, be it political ads or stereotyping, what have you, and it's the people-to-people contact. And finally, let me mention education, I think, is important. I always think of this when you look at our academic institutions or academic institutions abroad. This really brings our youth together. And that's an investment in terms of attitudes and change. For myself, I went to Georgetown undergraduate, and actually I was originally planning to go to France for my junior year abroad, but admittedly I ended up in the Netherlands. And that junior year abroad program really had an impact in terms of my own outlook. So bottom line is, I think some of those are the practical ways that you can advance this agenda forward. I just have one last footnote. One of the issues that I find, particularly with the American community, comes up all the time, is about this issue about assistance. And the question about looking here at home and then how much monies we're putting in for assistance abroad. And on this issue, the fact is that most do not know that our assistance abroad is 1% and even in some areas less than that. And I mentioned public-private partnerships. A lot of our business communities have been tremendous ambassadors of goodwill in coming forward and putting in monies. I mean, I think of the investment in Northern Ireland. I was involved with the first business conference that took place where the Taoiseach, Brian Cowan, attended. anyhow, that is something that I think is absolutely critical here. Getting messages out, you have to work at it because there are other messages and stereotyping that comes through, which I don't think, I hope for the long haul, is not going to resonate with the American population.